project, Bill.
Sorry about that. I'd forgotten to hit.
Okay, it's the least important part. See a group. So a group called Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership was formed in conjunction with MWPA to ask some follow-up questions. And let me just say a bit before we go into those questions about the group called the Marin Biomass Project. It was founded just before the passage of Measure C, and it was motivated by two climate-related realities: the increased risk of catastrophic wildfire and a recognition that processing and landfilling biomass can emit large amounts of greenhouse gas, including especially methane, particularly potent driver of climate change. The project grew out of early discussion, and we now call that Marin CAN, which later selected the project as one of 9 key climate solutions needed to reach zero net greenhouse gases emissions. So work began in earnest on this when the governor's office, this is of land use and climate investment, selected this project for funding as one of 5 pilots. The project was funded to overcome barriers to biomass feedstock utilization, and in so doing, facilitate wildfire safety initiatives. And the Marin Resource Conservation District, RCD, took on management of the grant. The grant started out at $500,000, and it increased to $750,000, and appointed a steering committee to guide
my sleepy girl. Yeah.
the development of a biomass utilization study. And the study addresses increasing flows of organic materials generated by wildfire prevention activities and by landfill diversion efforts in the county, required by SB 1383. And there are, we put this in because there's often a misunderstanding of what the biomass is that we're dealing with. We don't have a lumbering economy here in Marin, and so you can't in any way relate this to a biomass that is plantation biomass, and it's being left on the landscape or being handled like waste. So we just wanted to make that clear. And our concern is that a lot of the material is being left on the landscape because of no economic outlets or being handled like waste. So I am going to hand it over now to Chad to continue and finish the presentation.
Thanks, Bill. Part of the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation's efforts have been to help a large portion of the state that have more resource-based economies and much larger forests develop more of this resource-based economy of lumber industry. But it doesn't really make sense for Marin. We don't have that kind of material, and probably the county wouldn't politically support a lumbering economy here anyway. So as we begin to look at this issue and try to figure out where the outlets were and just realize there weren't a little, we also knew that the material isn't supposed to be going to landfill anymore under Senate Bill 1383. It's not an absolute prohibition, but there are a variety of other materials that also have some of the same challenges of being needed to be moved out of a disposal stream into some other kind of more diversified economy. So we thought it would make sense to ask the question, what are the relative sizes of these flows? How much wood is being generated from wildfire prevention? How much of these other materials are we talking about? What kind of economies are needed for them? How interdependent could they be? How synergistic could they be? And that's what we set out to do. So the questions we're looking at together is just how much stuff are we talking about? Where's it going? Are there gaps in that infrastructure so they're preventing it from being used? Are there alternatives to the current infrastructure, and what differences can they make? And our eye was really focused on greenhouse gas reduction as in addition to financial viability.
Question:
yeah.
Would urban forestry stuff, trees in urban environments be considered green materials?
It kind of depends. Yeah, so I didn't define that in much detail because I'm trying to move a little quickly, but a lot of the tree trimming work that's done under the auspices of wildfire safety and defensible space work tends to fall into the green material category because it's not like whole trunks. If there's a whole trunk that's cut down, it could make it into just be ground into wood chips, and it becomes that kind of feedstock. Or there probably are some cases in which somebody might make use of the whole log, but that's not, again, what we're really set up for. So mostly that kind of stuff falls into green materials.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so in trying to gather information about flows, we also tried to put together a framework for trying to look at where things are going. And we have things grouped here into some different types of utilization options. So one option is, in the case of wildfire prevention, to grind up materials and try to leave them on site. That's transportation convenient, but it tends to leave all that fuel on the forest floor. So it's not the best for wildfire safety. Solid fuel production, making things into firewood or wood pellets, that's fine. Not maybe the best greenhouse gas solution, but it could have some advantages. Wood products manufacturing, that's exciting when you have that infrastructure. Biological conversion techniques, those are things like aerobic and anaerobic decomposition. And then thermochemical conversion techniques, ideas that are either oxygen deprived or oxygen managed environments like pyrolysis and gasification. That we've looked into, and then disposal methods that could include incineration. We don't have that here, but waste to energy is kind of adjacent to that. And then also looking at landfilling. So within these broad categories, we looked at, and this is not a complete list, but we looked at 29 different options and tried to match what the technology is capable of using as an input to it, and how feasible it was around here in terms of Marin's existing infrastructure and its compatibility and some of its function. And most importantly, in addition to looking at the processing technology, we're really focused on the products, figuring that having saleable materials, ideally those for local use, is the best way to support this entire economy. And that fits with the logic of what the state was trying to do and setting things up, but we're just looking at different options. And we call these things together pathways. These are the pathways through the economy these materials need to take in order to be more circular, more regenerative, and to be put to some kind of economic use. So that's the framework. And now I can get a little nerdier with you if you guys are okay with it. I'm going to show you a diagram of what we found, and it's a little overwhelming, and I'll try to walk you through it. But this is the map of the economy that we created, trying to understand these different materials. And it's best read from left to right. So on the left-hand side, you see these categories of green materials. I have manure in there, food scraps, sewage, wood chips, logs, and construction and demolition wood. And the width of each of those bars gives you a sense of the magnitude of it in the economy. And then the flow is showing you where it's going. So you can see a lot of the green materials currently flow to composting. There's more that's expected to grow that does not yet have a composting home, which is why part of the gray bar is flowing down in the diagram to the bottom where you see landfilling. You can see that there are sewage is going to co-digestion of the wastewater treatment plants. There's a little bit of food that's doing that, but we think there's more in the economy that's going to landfill right now. A lot of our wood chips, some of which are being left in the landscape, some of them are going to combustion. And the red line is the materials that Marin doesn't have a great domestic use for. And the best use we've been able to figure out is to truck them about 100 miles into the Central Valley where it's getting burned. So this is a system we were looking at and trying to figure out which of the parts of this look good and we want to try to keep. And that's the part that's at the top, like composting is a good practice from a greenhouse gas and potential economic local use standpoint. And there are uses like the co-digestion of recoverable food scraps at the wastewater treatment plant in San Rafael here is being used to boost renewable electricity that is of interest to MCE as a local and potentially renewable energy source. But then the part at the bottom is the 60%, where the red represents material that's being exported. And even though it's being used to generate electricity, there's a significant greenhouse gas impact associated with that. And it's going to large grid electricity as opposed to local use. And then we just have a tremendous amount of material that's flowing into the waste stream. So that's where we get the 60% export to disposal estimate. So in doing our matching, we tried to look at these flows and figure out if we can come up with some that are better for greenhouse gas reduction and sequestration, and whether we can also figure out what's financially viable and economically beneficial for the county. And the map that we have here replicates some of the flows, but if you notice the colors have shifted a little bit, it's because we're trying to imagine bringing in new technologies. And I'm sorry, this has an error. That green box should come all the way down below the yellow to show that 60%. But we think that 60% of these uses could be more beneficial because they're hitting those 6 topics that Belle was talking about at the beginning of the presentation. Yeah. And we can't get at everything. There's a lot of this is more complicated to get at. We don't think we can build infrastructure that's big enough to redirect all of the material that's going to combustion in the Central Valley, at least not yet. And there's a lot more upstream work that would need to be done to prevent materials from ending up in what is just a too hard to recover construction and demolition waste stream, where they're mixed together or just not really accessible. So we've been working very closely, trying to take a lot of advice from Zero Waste Marin and their insights, and also where they're trying to take the county to figure this out. And ultimately, that bottom part is the frontier for future work. So the bottom line is that we're in the system on the left right now, and we're trying to shift to the system on the right. The system on the left is based a lot on disposal and export, and the system on the right we think can get us closer to a more regenerative economy. And in looking at this, as we went through and did a detailed life cycle analysis that compares these two systems for each of the different pathways, we were able to estimate the greenhouse gas emission reduction possibilities on an annual basis for each one of these. And that's what this chart shows us. Bell was reading you the recommendations. These are some of the top recommendations we have and the greenhouse gas emissions reductions associated with them, some of which come from return of materials to land. We have a lot of estimate in here that imagines moving these materials back to rangeland, and we can get a lot of sequestration benefit from doing that. Some of this is transportation reduction. Some of this is just capturing things, CO2 better in the process. Each one of these could be approached individually. The sum total of them is how we get to 32,000, but as they move forward, if they move forward, they could capture these things on their own. We think there's probably synergy in their co-development. And in doing our financial analysis, there are ways for each one of these processes to move forward and probably be financially viable in just a balance sheet kind of format. But trying to get them built means that we're going to have to compete for capital and attention with other things. And some businesses are going to need to take on some new infrastructure that isn't part of their existing operation. And so they're going to have some inherent risk in learning. We've talked with MSS, Marin Sanitary Service, a fair amount about this, and they have been curious about gasification technology, not something they've done before. So they've just got risk associated with taking that on, and there's risk in the financial modeling about some of the things that would help them do it, like the price of carbon incentives that they could potentially capture, and those fluctuate. So in the column on the right, we've estimated using some sensitivity analysis on some of the potential prices. What we understand people have is maybe gaps in the capital they can get, or just what they need to kind of help them manage the risk of the investment, to come up with what we call the supportive investment numbers that suggest what would be good for the public sector or some other source to kind of put together to try to make this happen quickly. So we think that all of this will move a lot faster if we can get some of this investment placed in support of these things. So we're looking at different ways that could happen. There are state grant programs that we think could be a good fit for some of this as well. So that's how we get to our recommendations of saying that we think it's possible and a good idea to expand composting of green materials. We've got good capture of them right now. There's different kinds of capacity in the county we could look at using or building. Especially ones that can help return the compost to rangeland and get some of those really great greenhouse gas benefits. Co-digestion has opportunity for expansion. We've got infrastructure here. We just need to get the food there, and then we can boost local renewable electricity. Milling for roadway logs was done for a little while here. In the absence of having an active mill, we're chipping and shipping all that material to the Central Valley and burning it. Why not keep it here in various uses? There's good ways to produce materials that are inputs for furniture manufacturing from that. Gasification of C&D materials doesn't necessarily save greenhouse gas emissions from the way the materials are used, but it saves a tremendous amount in the trucking, and it would save us a lot of money in the long run. Co-pyrolysis of digestate with woody biomass from wildfire prevention could create biochar that, if you turn to land, could have some really great carbon benefits or just be useful as an input to the economy more broadly. And we think this all, again, gets us to reduce shipment to the Central Valley and less landfilling.
Quick question for you. Have you looked at rail transport of bulk materials as an alternative to trucking?
No, no, but that would presume that somewhere along the rail line it would make sense. I would suspect that the people who are shipping stuff long distances have looked into that, but that's not a question we asked.
Well, you'd have to work with SMART. on their freight operations, but it's conceivable you could have a spur at Redwood landfill and be able to ship, but you need a location to receive the material by rail as well as one to ship.
Yeah.
And so it's a two-ended question about investment of resources, but it could greatly reduce your GHG in transport.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. There are about 4 power plants that are accepting this material that's being sold. And so the question would be, how are they related to rail networks as well? But I think that's a good idea. So just to bring it home, and thank you all for letting us talk to you about this. The next steps are we're going to release the report. We have been huddling with about 3 dozen stakeholders from around the county who are directly or indirectly related to a lot of these different topics, and talking with them along the way to get their perspectives, to ask them to ground truth some of our numbers, to help us understand how we think these things can come to life. So they all have a copy of the report right now. We're meeting with them next Friday to see if they have pats on the back or hair on fire about stuff. We're curious to see where this is going to go. And we're hoping to move from that broad collaborative into people around these different recommendations that can really help us figure out the business model for them, how to bring them to life, how to provide the right support for them. And we're looking to work with partners on aligning strategies. A lot of this work really is about talking with public entities and creating the broad foundations for an economy that can do this. And so I sometimes think that we're building that kind of recovery platform and trying to get that rail right. So we're looking for engagement with some of the different public entities that have been involved with our process, and see if we can align our strategies and develop agreements that can help get this built and get the funding to make it happen. So all of this, we're hoping, takes us towards a more regenerative economy. And Bella, I thank you very much for your time. We're happy to talk about this or just move through the agenda as the group needs.
Thank you, Chad. We have about 7 minutes for questions.
Yeah.
We got Chris over here.
Either of you, in the study, and it went on for a couple of years.
Oh, it's an understatement. I mean, it was conceived
Back in
back in 2020.
Yeah.
And so it was funded. I mean, we never thought it came out of meetings we had. What was the predecessor to?
It was Drawdown Marin, it's now Marin Can.
Yeah.
So let me just ask a question if I could. Thank you. During this process of investigating, the various products that come out of these activities, any insight on jobs created, for example, net revenue that could be infused into the economy?
We have a chapter 4, which is the finance economic chapter. And we haven't really looked hard at manpower. We just, for reasons, maybe because it's down the line, I'm not sure, but we have looked at the sort of economic feasibility of these projects, and we have come up with sort of the investment capacity. And I think that what are some of the other things in chapter 4 that we did?
Let me say this. We were very fortunate to find a consulting team who would take our project and work with us and bring their expertise here. But what we asked them to do to put this all in this context is not what they normally do. So they brought to our financial and economic a project development perspective. So they looked at kind of the balance sheet of trying to get these projects developed and funded on an individual basis, and that's what they offered us. So we have kind of a pro forma financial analysis and all detailed in the appendix. These were not labor economists. They didn't step back and really think about jobs and job markets. So that's work that would still need to lie in the next phase of the work. And it's something that in some ways pains me a little bit that we can't just say, but that's where we ended up, and that's what we were able to do in the phase of the work.
Who was the consulting company?
You should see the acknowledgement page.
Was Beacon Economics?
No, we worked with 2 people. There's some consultants that have been in the space for a long time called TSS Consultants, and there's another person that works with them called David Featherman, who works under his title Wilderforce. So they're people who have been in the bioenergy space a lot. And so that's where they know a lot of things, and they help people figure out how to either acquire feedstocks to run an energy project, or they try to work with people to get a project built based on the feedstocks that they
Economic Forum. Which no longer exists.
Michael Blakely sat with us and he had probably some of the same perspective that you
Yeah.
did. And I know we've talked a little bit before, Chris, too. He was like, this isn't really getting at some of those bigger questions about job markets. And we know that. We know that's not what, this is not providing that answer.
Is there a plan to maybe get a grant for economic development and feasibility?
I think we're interested in that question. I don't know that these are huge numbers in terms of jobs, but there's some jobs. And there's as kind of skilling the workforce that can come out of this in a variety of different ways. That, again, just sort of became bigger than the scope of this project. So, I mean, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for the presentation. If people wants to see the report, how do they access to that? And the second one is like, is this a pilot in the state of California? Have you seen other models that they are working happening here? Where are we in terms of, other projects for biomass?
You asked whether it's a pilot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And it,
Can I answer this question?
sure.
The report will be available on our website, which is the Marin Biomass Project website on the Marin RCD website. And that will be available sometime in February. We have a target date. I won't say what it is. It kind of depends like what we do in the next couple of weeks in terms of like making modifications. It's a pilot. There are 6 pilots that the state chose to fund together. Ours is a little different because we're the only pilot project that's really asking deep carbon questions. And we're the only pilot that has existing institutions already doing things like wildfire prevention planning and de-densification work. The other pilots are trying to figure out how to kind of get themselves to that level. And some of them are taking a much stronger economic development perspective. So they're really looking at biomass as a corner of their economy, but they're up in the Sierra and that kind of makes a little more sense to them. So there are others that we're with who are looking at this, but what we're doing is maybe asking some of the second generation synergy questions that are a little bit less resource based and a little bit more in the regenerative economy space. And we're asking those deeper carbon questions to make us a little bit different.
And I would say we probably are the only ones who are really working on the carbon side of it. I mean, we have a whole chapter on greenhouse gas emissions, and we had some of the leading experts in the consulting world who worked on this. And so I think we get better results given the circumstances. But yours is a great question, Chris. We'll get to it because we're gonna move on with the next stage is implementation of some of these things.
Yeah, and there are
those
other questions that I'll answer a question that nobody's asked, not that you should have, but sort of signs of growth here and that might be relevant with this group. Like Bill has been very good about trying to keep us connected with the county climate action reporting. Like we're trying to figure out like how does something like this translate? There are elements of this project that could translate into that kind of work really readily, and we would hope would support and boost it. There's some aspects of this that could really help in the agricultural sector, and there's some stuff here that like the existing climate or carbon greenhouse gas reporting frameworks for counties doesn't exactly encapsulate. We've had some of those conversations trying to figure out like where that practice can grow to capture some of these things. Similarly, like some of this planning assumes that people will be interested in trying to calculate their carbon reductions, pursue certification, get credits, sell those credits. That's work that has big economic impacts and some uncertainties, but we also are trying to foster that through some of this work as well.
If I could just add one thing also, and I'm on the steering committee as well, and Larry is, and Bruce up on the screen somewhere, and Barbara. So there's quite a interesting and diverse steering committee. But I think the other lens that I try to bring to this is these are ultimately going to be, joint decisions between private parties like Marin Sanitary Service, for just one, to name one, and the public sector, which of course is making decisions that renew those contracts and can alter those contracts with those providers like MSFs. So I think from the standpoint of those decisions from Micah, that Micah needs to make and others on the public sector, the economic feasibility is clearly a big driver of that, as would be economic development. And I think that'll be fleshed out somewhat in the report. But a huge public benefit of this is the climate benefit and the reduction of greenhouse gas. And I think that it's my hope anyway, can be part of the motivating factor that decision makers have in mind when it comes time to adjust rates or whatever other, or identify other streams of revenue that could move this along in the most beneficial direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal here, at least my North Star, is how do you get this to pay for itself? Like, this should be an economy that pays for itself. And we've got an economy that pays for something else right now. And so the question is, how do we get there? And, there are difficult questions embedded in it. Senate Bill 1383 leaves the choices about how to pay for this to local governments. So Sacramento didn't fund that system. We have to try to figure out how to divert from landfill and do other things sort of at the local taxpayer base. Those are complicated conversations to have that I'm sure many people in this room are having. So we've got that in mind as we're thinking about this too. Another thing I was just going to say, now I forgot what it was.
Question with all the greenhouse gas reductions,
Yeah.
to what extent were you able to look at being able to sell carbon credits, have verification protocols for the kinds of ways that there's gas reductions, and were you able to get to the place where you could put that into the analysis, or is that still too premature?
No, in fact, it is included in the analysis as part of what makes this seem more economically viable, is that this depends on some of those markets in order for this to work. So there's a way in which this report was designed to carve out a concept and prove its general viability. And some of the stuff, especially what you're talking about, like people at the individual project level, when they build this, have to be willing to walk through those steps in order for that revenue stream to show up for them. They could finance the project a different way, but a lot of ours is based, at least in part, on carbon financing. And I remember the other thing I was going to say. I don't know in some ways that what do I want to say? There's an analysis we did in the report that I think was kind of interesting. In part, we hired a consultant who's very into forest science and very interested in estimating the emissions avoided by preventing forest fire. And he has a model that he's been developing called avoided wildfire emissions. And in part, that was the hammer he wanted to bring to our project, which became his nail. So it wasn't exactly on point with the questions we asked, but he ended up doing that analysis, looking at what Marin is doing under Measure C and coming up with a number that says, based on assumptions about how forest behavior and fire behavior is going to change, how much greenhouse gas emissions is Marin likely saving over 40 years from doing its wildfire prevention work. And he gave us that number. And then to try to annualize that and put it in the context of climate action plan reporting, we divided that number by 40. And what I just have a little bit of a hard time wrapping my head around still, because we know how catastrophic wildfire can be. And it's a statistical calculation that he did, but what we find is that what we're doing with this material vastly swamps the carbon savings from avoiding wildfire. If you look over 40 years, like we're just going to reduce so much more by getting this right than we do by that. And by doing other things that really keep carbon on the landscape, that's super important. But I think that kind of comparison, and our study doesn't make it super strongly because I think it's a little bit of a surprise, and there are probably different questions about how we could have done it, but it's just left me with a feeling about what we're doing with this material is as important as some of the efforts to keep it on the landscape.
Nice. I do want to, unfortunately, we have other things on the agenda, but I think you're going to be doing some more presentations. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
maybe one or two.
I guess we would hope so. It depends on the appetite of the audience to hear from us. I mean, there are people that I'm super excited to see Kimberly here. I haven't talked in a long time, but I'm a big fan. We haven't talked to some of the public boards like Zero Waste Marin and tried to see how this informs their thinking or is helpful. Yesterday, I gave a presentation to the Marin RCD board, which was warmly received. And we're really trying to figure out how we connect with them and start building the business model with them where some of this will make sense. So from that standpoint, yes, Corey, but I think more than giving presentations, we're really trying to create dialogues. We're trying to get people involved and figure this out together.
Okay.
And you listened to it and there was a lot that you saw, didn't understand perhaps everything. But if you have any thoughts about presentation and things that, for example, people in this room would like to know on this subject that we're not emphasizing, let us know. Because we're just starting. I mean, we don't issue the report publicly till next month. So we're looking at ways of modifying how we present and even what we say. So,
There's not one way to talk about that.
Right.
and it's just big.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
And so you really need to focus.
Yeah. We've done an amazing job. It's so great to see this coming to conclusion, to see all the recommendations, to see how thorough it is, taking into account, all the aspects of a regenerative economy.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
You were there in the very beginning.
I was, and then I sort of
You-
dipped out, and so.
Thank you.
And now we pivot to resilient neighborhoods, and Catherine Ross Stevenson, our executive director.
Thank you. So I'm Catherine, the Executive Director of Resilient Neighborhoods. I joined the team in 2023. For those of you who I have not met yet, and stepped into the Executive Director role in 2024. Resilient Neighborhoods, though, was founded in 2010 by our very own Tamara Peters, who's here this evening. And the first teams graduated in 2011, climate action teams. So what is Resilient Neighborhoods? Resilient Neighborhoods is one of Marin County's most effective, proven catalysts for residential climate action. And it mobilizes thousands of people every year to adopt high impact behaviors that directly advance every municipal climate action plan. Next, can you get those slides going?
How do you do this? Is it down here?
So it's hiding behind your film strip. So if you pull that film strip
There
down,
we go.
and then actually it's the present button
Yeah.
just to the left there. Present. There
we
you go. Voila. Thank you, Corey. Wonderful. And go ahead. Next slide. Thank you. So we're all pretty familiar at this point with the problem, right? While local governments account for only 1% of emissions here in Marin County, Resilient Neighborhoods tackles the 55 to 75% of greenhouse gas emissions generated by households. Next slide. And you know what? The majority of people who live here in Marin are worried about climate change. Many feel overwhelmed and they're really unsure what they can do to make a difference. And even residents who have a lot of experience and understanding of the actions that they could be taking struggle to put these lifestyle changes at the top of their to-do lists without accountability and support. So really simply just giving people a list of things that they could do to reduce their carbon footprints, it's not enough. And that's where we come in. Next slide. So Resilient Neighborhoods empowers people to take personal and local action to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and create communities that are connected to one another and resilient to disasters. And in this way, we're working both at the root causes that are contributing to climate change and also helping people learn to adapt. Next slide. So we offer a free climate action workshop that is takes place online. It's 5 meetings over 8 weeks to help people reduce their own emissions and prepare for emergencies. And our program includes clear step-by-step actions, personalized support, and accountability. And we have over 100 different actions that people can take. So there's something there for every lifestyle. And I'll say this again later in the presentation, but over 75% of our actions are accessible to renters as well as homeowners. So this program includes access to coaching in between sessions, email access to coaches after graduation as well. As ongoing access to our really thorough online resource, which is a climate action toolkit that shows you how to take all the actions that you want to make. Thank you, Corey. So this program is holistic. And it covers a full spectrum of community interests, including home energy, water conservation, waste reduction, food and shopping habits, transportation, and emergency preparedness. Next slide. So over the course of the program, participants learn how to shift buying decisions, make transportation mode shifts, conserve the energy and water, electrify their homes, reduce waste, and again, prepare for emergencies, which is so important, as we've seen. Now we started off, no, you're good.
Okay.
You're tracking with me. Thank you, Corey. He's reading my mind. In addition to what people received during the program, a couple of years ago, we launched a 2030 climate challenge, which adds a whole nother dimension to the work that we do, because we recognize that it's not enough to just take the actions during the program. We need to have people keep taking actions and keep taking new actions. Also, you can't do everything all at once. Some actions are more costly, and you need to plan for them and prioritize them over time. So our climate action plan now has options for people to take actions right away, take more actions in the next 12 months, and then plan further actions between now and 2030. Then we follow up with annual phone calls and reminders, free access to the online toolkit, which is updated quarterly, and people have access to their personal plan. And in addition to that, we give people access to our monthly newsletter, and just last year started a new quarterly email update to make sure that people know what the latest is in terms of cost saving measures to take the actions in the most cost effective way, taking advantage of any rebates and incentives that are coming online. So now we're supporting over 2,300 people each year as they work to fulfill their climate action plan pledges and keep taking climate action between now and 2030. So, we, in the last 4 years, we've gotten, 107 testimonials, and they all say how empowered the program makes them feel, how inspiring it is, how much they value the online resource that we provide, and how helpful it is to know that we're going to be with them every step of the way, from the time they take the course through 2030 and hopefully beyond. Next slide. So our teams have now reducing over 14.8 million annual pounds of climate pollution. And our program graduates are 70% of the way towards our 2030 goal of reducing 20 million annual pounds in Marin County. So this is an effective model for reducing climate pollution. We get an average 37% reduction just from the time that people start the program to the time that they finish, and including some pledges within the few following months. And when we look at their 2030 pledges, the things that they're going to do between now and 2030, that number is now around 45%. So that's not over 1990 levels, that's over now levels. So we're really happy with that. We have people opting up to renewable energy, installing solar, purchasing. This number is a little bit old. I think last year, something like 40% had EVs, at least one EV, and people commit to buying more. 100% of non-composters start composting and get their friends and neighbors to do the same. And then we have a high adoption of lifestyle changes that people just choose to make, like having more plant-based diets, local food sourcing, reducing their waste and considering what they're purchasing, and conserving water. In addition, our program has ripple effects out into the community. Graduates of our program are climate influencers, really, within their networks, amplifying the results beyond the workshop. peer-to-peer motivation spreads through families and neighbors, faith communities, civic and social groups. And our grads participate in the climate action committees and commissions in Marin County. They help shape local climate action plans. They're available for council meetings and help with public support for local initiatives as well. They also start green businesses, lead green nonprofits, and they mobilize community groups around resilience. In addition, we have now over 16 current and former local officials who've graduated from our program. And I'm happy to say we have more in our Wednesday group that we just started last night. And, you know, collaboration is such a big thing in Marin County, and Resilient Neighborhoods has been working collaboratively since we started, really. So we've been working with jurisdictions since 2015 to help reduce residential emissions. Resilient Neighborhoods is explicitly included in multiple climate action plans as the primary behavior change engine for residential emissions. And we work to provide a unified countywide approach that prevents fragmented or duplicative or inconsistent outreach efforts. Cities and towns help get the word out about our program, and then we help to amplify local and countywide climate initiatives through our program. So, you know, we're working to make our program as inclusive as possible and keep our workshops free. They've always been free. And like I said, 75% of our actions are renter friendly. We have tailored guidance for lower income households on rebates and incentives just for them. We have targeted support for older adults to help with emergency preparedness and also just the technical aspects of the program. And we've built some resources in the Spanish language, including flyers, and we have a Spanish language webpage now. And we're working to develop a new Spanish language program that we're excited about. So, you know, one of the testimonials we received last year from Jason, who is a renter, was like, wow, you know, I used this as an excuse for so long that, you know, there was nothing I could do. I went through your program and I found a million ways I could work for the climate and be part of the climate solution. And we really find that when we pool all of our efforts together, our climate action teams really make a difference, and those numbers really add up. So we have really a growing over 2,300 people on an annual basis. Nearly 100% of our graduates stay involved, even years after completing the program. I got, I think, 3 emails the 10 days following our last quarterly e-blast with like, oh, we did the program in 2020, and here's the list of all the things that we've accomplished since then. So it's really great to see those. And then we're making steady progress towards our 2030 goal. So we're excited about that. We've also been working to further develop our climate education and outreach program, which reaches over 6,000 people a year. In 2025, we attended 25 different events that were that had over 8,000 people in attendance together. And we designed a new exhibit booth last year to really boost engagement and deepen our impact. And we're asking people to take an action and to share an action with someone they know, with a neighbor, a friend, family, and then to sign up for a workshop to learn more and deepen their engagement and take the next step on their climate action journey. And we found that we prototyped this new exhibit booth at Stomp, and it worked really well. So we're looking forward to continuing to work with that this year. So just as a recap, what we're offering now is more than one thing. We're doing our workshops and adding new graduates to our program. We're providing ongoing support for our graduates. We're building out our climate education and outreach program, which is supported by our volunteer ambassadors who help give presentations on our behalf and help spread the word about our program and are involved in climate education out in the community. And then we're, supporting and cultivating climate leadership. Hopefully just really being a bridge between individual action and collective action. We focus in our program on what people can do to join the climate movement and get more involved. And so that's a key part of the value that we're providing to Marin County. Thank you. Next slide. So what we're working on is we want to introduce some shorter programs that will broaden our reach and lower engagement barriers so that people can get to know us through short programs, one on each pillar of our program. So we would build one out for waste reduction, one for home energy, one for water, one for transportation over a period of time, and then rotate them through and use that as a way to invite people into our behavior change program. Again, we're looking to develop a Spanish language workshop that's not translated, but that is facilitated in Spanish. And then one thing that is not funded yet, but that I'm really excited about and working towards is integrating a learning management system into our program, because I know that it will have so many benefits in terms of program delivery and flexibility there, and scalability and just community building. So that's one thing that I've been working with a volunteer on in the background, and I'm looking for additional funding for this year. And so just want to add, with another great testimonial, I highly recommend joining this program and joining the climate change movement in Marin. You will learn more than you can imagine about positive actions you can take to mitigate our gnarly collective problem. You will feel empowered, and it's great to be part of a team so you don't feel like you're operating alone in this global predicament. So thank you, Susan, for that wonderful testimonial. People do feel empowered, and it can be so devastating what's going on. And so we really do find hope in being part of the solution, finding the small things that we can do together to make a difference. Next slide. So if you haven't been through the program yet, we invite you to join us. So the next teams are starting off in spring. There's a Wednesday team that starts March 25th. And then there's a Thursday team that starts the next week at 4:30. And there should be a QR code on the next slide if you want to just take a snap. I also have some flyers here if you haven't taken the program yet. Whether you've done a little or a lot, you'll find something here for you in terms of your next step on the climate journey.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
How many people in resilient neighborhoods are going through it now? Fantastic.
I have one of these.
Great. Well, it's a fun program too, so I encourage you to go through it if you haven't.
Do we have time for questions?
Yes.
I have one too.
Go.
Yeah. You can pass them around and anyone can take one.
Catherine, I was wondering, as we just saw a lot of our future leaders right here,
Yes.
is there an age limit to joining? Can high school students, college students?
High school and college students can participate. That's a great question. And if you're living at home, it's awesome to do it with someone in your household that, is maybe responsible for your household budget, because doing it together as a team is really highly effective. So college students also find benefit. There's some limitations for people who live in dorms. Specifically versus apartments. So that's kind of the dorm, it'll still give good information. But if you're once you're in an apartment, absolutely.
So do you do outreach to say DU or College of Marin? Do you try to hit some of those students or?
We have in the past, and we would love help doing that again. Yeah.
Well,
Well, first, Catherine, I think this program is amazing, and I just love the fact that you're documenting the specific ROI. I mean, to use a lousy business term, but it's just amazing to quantify what you're doing. A couple sort of comments, and I want to riff off of Shannon's. I lead the Student Advisory Committee for Sustainable San Rafael. I encourage you to think about ways in which students could access this on their own versus part of a family. And then that could be sort of a ripple effect where, if 15 students are in a cohort, then they're going back to their families, they're going to other students. So just thinking about ways to break it down. I don't know what your budget is, but I think about it. But I think there are inexpensive ways to brainstorm on this where I think you could expand the different subgroups that are taking this program.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I will say personally, I found 5 sessions too much as a full-time working person. So I love the fact that you're breaking this down now and even offering I can imagine these little smaller, you say the pillars, if somebody says, hey, I really want to work on water conservation, I'm going to plug into that. And maybe it's a 2-hour thing, but I take away, I'm doing something. So for me, I found it a little bit too much to commit to. So I just love the fact that you're thinking about.
And I see the learning management system as a step towards being able to provide individual modules. We want people to take the whole behavior change program.
Yeah.
And I do see a possibility for that in the future. And high school students can go through the program as it is now without a parent or guardian. So that's totally possible. We just hear feedback that the teams are very successful when we get parent, teen to do it together. That's highly effective.
Yeah. It makes sense. I could just creative student cohort that could be an experiment. Anyway.
I'd love to talk with you about that offline.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah. Have you seen in the data that you put together, have you seen any impact of the horrors that are affecting climate change at the federal level and also seeping down into the state? Have you seen any a change in numbers following your program, or is it the other way around? I mean,
not yet. I mean, we had a lot of people taking advantage of some of the incentives that were expected to sunset. So on a temporarily, some of the rebates and incentives are going away. We hope someday they'll come back, but that is going to be an impact that will affect people's affordability. But we're not seeing reductions in
people
yet in terms of what they're doing,
and
what they're able to do.
Climate change.
Yeah,
That's good.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for the question.
Give it a shot.
Now we get to turn it over to Annika Osborne from Ride and Drive Clean.
I'm no longer on Policy Advisory Council, but that does have my.
Thanks for joining, Annika.
Thank you for
your presentation.
There's some other thoughts about this.
Sign my
Sanitary and bulk shipping and recycling materials.
I'm talking with you about your pilot for the Spanish.
That would.
Yes, I have
not
some
deal with
ideas.
that. Also plastics and paper
Yeah.
and stuff to be shipped by rail. Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's
right.
turn it over to Annika.
Thank you so much, Maria and Micah, for having me today. I'm Annika Osborne, and I'm the Director of Programs and Community Outreach for Cool the Earth. And I have been working on the Ride and Drive Clean initiative for over 8 years now, which is amazing. Former English and history teacher, corporate trainer, switched to environmental education. So today I'm here to give an update on where we're going in 2026, despite a few headwinds.
Yeah.
So the Ride and Drive Clean initiative, our mission is to reduce carbon emissions and local air pollution by accelerating an equitable adoption of electric transportation through education, incentives, and partnerships. The Ride and Drive Clean initiative is a strong network of partners reaching thousands of residents, to help reduce emissions by encouraging people to replace their gas cars with an EV or an e-bike. Our approach combines education, community outreach, and practical assistance to help people make the transition to electric vehicles and powering them with clean energy. The financial savings that our participants have achieved demonstrates that EVs aren't just good for the environment, they're also good for household budgets, which many of us who drive EVs can attest to. So we're rolling out enhanced programs to maintain the momentum. Our discount and savings programs help offset the loss of federal incentives. So along with our series of webinars, we've launched a new webinar called EVs Better Than Ever. We're always coming up with some new kind of angles on things. And, now I think people, really emphasizing the benefits. We were doing a lot of save money with an EV in the last year or two. And now it's like, what are the other benefits, including lower total cost of ownership. So this webinar is, going to educate consumers on the current state of EV technology and economics, including the vast advantage of the new NACS network that's being open now to all EVs, which is kind of mind-blowing and wonderful.
You're going to let me know when to do slides?
Yes,
Okay.
we're still on this one.
Are we? Okay.
Yeah, so community EV shows let people see and test drive the latest models. It's great to be able to see a bunch of different EVs in one place and talk to not only owners, but experts on EVs. People like, rather than talking just to dealerships, it's nice to talk to people who've been through the experience of owning an EV and how do they power it at home. And, so just hearing stories and learning from others. So this is really important as we are now in the middle market of EV adoption. We're no longer in the early adoption stage. And, those people had more of an interest in exploring new things. The middle market wants reliability, value, and convenience. And we're focusing on the benefits of EVs. So there are over 30 EVs on the market under $50,000, which is the average cost of a new car in the United States. So people say that, EVs are more expensive, but there are so many models out there and more coming out this year. There's going to be a revamped Chevy Bolt. The Nissan Leaf now has over 300 miles. These are both going to be under $30,000. So that's pretty exciting. Plus some new, EVs coming as well. And gas cars are 2 to 5 times more expensive to fuel than an EV, depending upon where and when you charge it. Which is really important to think about. And maintenance is 40% less for an EV. It's like switching out your windshield wiper fluid and rotating your tires, really. What else? So safety features make EVs very responsive in some of the safest cars out there on the market. And as you can see from the person on the slide, EVs are simply a little more fun to drive. We're forming strategic partnerships with dealers and manufacturers to offer exclusive promotions, kind of to make up for the loss of the federal tax credit. So over 8 years and hundreds of events, both in person and and online, our post-event surveys show that 98% of attendees either already own an EV or say that we've influenced them in their decision to go electric. Let's celebrate some successes here. We'll start with the good news. Marin County achieved a remarkable milestone in 2025 with 41% of new cars being purchased being EVs. And that's one of the highest adoption rates in the country and in California. I think only Santa Clara County was ahead of us. So really impressive. That was for Q3 2025. Let's see. It's really a testament to the commitment of our residents, businesses, and our local governments to take climate action and the success of grassroots engagement programs like ours and resilient neighborhoods. This achievement shows that the work we're doing together can make a really big difference. Sorry, next slide. I keep moving. However, the vast majority of drivers can charge at home. And this has not been an equitable transition due to the lack of accessible and affordable EV charging for lower income residents, many who live in apartments. Next. And so, yes, in 2026, we are facing a few headwinds. The loss of the federal EV tax credit, creates uncertainty for consumers who were counting on that $7,500 incentive for new and $4,000 for used EVs. MCE's EV rebate is on pause right now. Tariff uncertainties are affecting vehicle pricing and availability. Some auto manufacturers are pulling back on their EV commitments. And this is what's so crazy, despite after having invested billions of dollars in transitioning to EVs. It's such an inefficient way, to have this pendulum swing when we had real progress going and then now shifting back to producing gas cars or hybrids. And offshore drilling proposals threaten the very coastline that we are trying to protect through electrification. So, we definitely have some work to do. So we are targeting the next most likely buyers. These are middle and lower income drivers, pushing the fact that the lower total cost of ownership, and highlighting, the long-term fuel and maintenance savings with and multifamily residents. So we are wanting to focus more on charging access, which is the main barrier, along with, vehicle cost, which is now at price parity with gas cars. We're wanting to work with, property owners to create systematic solutions to getting EV charging and, available for, in every parking spot where people park their cars, easy and convenient for them. And then there's some hope also with the used EV market. There are, EVs coming off of their leases all the time. And so leases typically last 2 to 3 years. And in the last 2 to 3 years, there's been a lot of great innovation in the EVs that have come out. So these EVs that are coming off lease are really like top, high-end, top-of-the-line EVs, many of them starting with like a 300-mile range and, now maybe 280-mile range and very affordable, even in comparison with other used cars. So we also, we have some, we got a county grant that we're going to use for outreach and education to multifamily home property owners and managers so that we can work directly with the building owners and managers and educate them about the benefits of adding EV charging to their apartments and condos. And we're also looking to work with, with other CBOs in our equity communities, with the partnerships that we have partnerships with Multicultural Center of Marin and Canal Alliance and are already working with them. So continuing this good work that we're doing with them. Okay. Next. So in 2026, we have some clear priorities. We will continue educating consumers with our events and webinars and run our EV discount campaigns that convert interest to purchase. We find that a lot of times people come to a webinar or an event and we see the results, some immediately, but some 6 months to 3 years to 6 years after they've first, gone to one of our events. They, know that we are a source for education. They get our newsletters. And then when they're ready to get their next car, they know that they can count on us to help, give them the latest information on incentives and EVs and such. So everybody doesn't make that switch immediately. Often it just takes a few years, months and even years we're seeing. Let's see. Yes. So accelerating multifamily charging with property owners and managers, launching new building. Oh, and finally, we did a survey with our, we have 25,000 people who read our newsletters, and we recently did a survey to ask if there was interest in home electrification guidance. And we did find that many people who follow us are very interested in learning more and would like us to launch into that sector. So we're doing a pilot this year. We're in the research phase right now, and we're planning to launch a pilot for this building electrification campaign, kind of modeled after our successful Ride and Drive Clean campaign to tackle, all elements of electrification, including heat pumps for water and space heating, induction cooking, solar, battery storage, and yard equipment. We'll leverage our 25,000 plus database and our partners, and we'll include actions for single family home and renters as well. And as we know, we can't do this alone, so we need strong partnerships like those that we have with the county and with the city of San Rafael. There are many ways to collaborate by co-hosting events, by supporting charging infrastructure, by promoting programs through the city channels, and by connecting us with property owners and managers, and collaborating on building electrification as well. So we're here as a resource for the community, and so that we can all reach our climate action goals in San Rafael. So, go to the next one if you have one. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Sonika.
Anybody has any questions?
Any questions do people have?
Are you still doing the sort of the parking lot demos?
Yeah, so those are our EV shows. We do them throughout the Bay Area. We do them in Vallejo, Palo Alto, San Jose, Marin County. We've been doing them in like Ross Valley, Mill Valley, for several years now. Yeah, Pittsburgh.
Is there a schedule online anywhere?
We're sort of in the works right now. Like we know that Novato, for example, is doing an electrification fair. So we'll be there with our EVs again for their electrification fair. Mill Valley is hosting their Earth Day event. So we'll be at those two. We don't in counties. I think like Sausalito has expressed interest in doing an EV show, Larkspur, many cities and, the county. So we're hoping that we can partner with San Rafael and do one, find a strategic location where we could park a variety of EVs and also do e-bike test rides. That's something that we do at these events as well. We have plenty of people in Marin County who drive electric who would love to volunteer to come to these events and talk about their experience. Yes.
So Annika, we talked about this once before, but do you also talk to people about leasing electric vehicles? Because, it's often actually much cheaper than buying, especially not as much now that some of the incentives are gone, but.
Yeah, it's sort of like an individual decision, whether you lease or you buy, sometimes there are long-term savings if you purchase, but, with new technology like the EVs have, a lot of people like to lease. So absolutely, we talk about leasing and buying and the advantages of both. Yeah. Yes.
So have you found over the years that people are getting over range anxiety, or is that still a big deal?
It's funny because
PHEVs instead because they have gas backup.
Yeah, it's funny. So plug-in hybrids we consider sort of like the gateway car to an EV. But that was really relevant when some of those early cars like the Nissan Leaf had low range. It made a lot of sense. And it still makes sense for some people, but for most people, a fully electric EV now, because most have from 250 to 350 miles of range, it's plenty for most people. Most people in the Bay Area drive 25 miles or less a day. So it's really for road trips. And, so most people can cover it. But it's interesting because we do our pre-survey and post-surveys, and our pre-surveys often show how far they can go. You can drive to LA with like 2 20-minute stops or maybe 2 or 3 stops. It's people are like, okay, wow, this is, something we can do. So, yeah, exactly.
Did you have a question?
Yes.
That's you kind of led into what I was going to ask is there an infrastructure or do you have a map of the infrastructure if you are a roadie and you travel throughout California?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different, like PlugShare is an app that you can use.
Oh.
Now EVs have their own navigation systems pretty much, so it makes it super easy. And I mentioned a little bit NACS, it's the North American Charging Standard, which is actually the Tesla supercharging stations. So they are opening up, it's actually really huge. So they're opening up to all EVs. So now when you're on a road trip, you can stop at those. And the benefit of that is that like the Tesla supercharging network, like 99% reliability, when you show up, the chargers work. Because they own the system, they're very interested in repairing and maintaining them. So it's very easy. I mean, when I first did a road trip to LA, it was like 6 years ago, and in EV, we really had to map it out beforehand. And now when we go to LA and back, like on almost every exit it's so easy to do a road trip now. Yeah, with an EV. Yeah, so they have adapters now that you can put in to cars to be able to use that Tesla supercharging network.
Kim, for the last question. Then
Okay.
It's actually just a comment.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you because I did the events and the webinars are amazing resources. And I've had the 65-mile range Nissan Leaf and then, Prius hybrid and a plug-in hybrid. And I really wanted electric, but I was afraid because of range anxiety also, and ended up with a really wonderful certified used EV that I love, and I can get to LA.
Okay. Thank you.
Eventually, the only range anxiety will be cow. Okay, so moving on. Sorry, that just came to me. Thank you very much, Annika. I appreciate it. Thanks for all your work. So we're getting toward the end here. We just have one last thing, and that's city updates, and then we want to let you know about the April meeting because we have something special in mind. I'm sorry Miles had to leave, but I want to introduce Carrie Fugit. Carrie is our Climate Justice and Engagement Manager. Carrie came a couple of times ago, and she's going to give a little update on our climate equity work and community engagement work here.
First off, just I'm in awe of this, all of you, everything that is happening is just really, really inspiring and an antidote to the larger world. So thank each and every one of you for pushing the envelope in every single direction. So just huge gratitude and appreciation. As Corey said, I'm the Climate Justice and Engagement Manager here. I'm just starting my second year. And
Could you move over so the screen can see you? Thank you.
Totally. Thank you. One of the areas I've been working on is developing a climate justice lens for the city. And what that means is how can we investigate our current processes and integrate climate justice, equitable climate action considerations and implementation into what we're already doing and kind of bake it into the system. So I've been working on, first off, researching any sort of similar model across the country. There's not really a roadmap for this necessarily. Nobody's really been able to crack the nut, but we have had some really, really great examples and spotlights from around the country that we've integrated into a mock-up, and we're about to start bringing it around to different departments to ask for feedback and ask the question is where are your existing processes that we can embed these sorts of questions and considerations? And the mock-up includes both resources around what are the climate inequities in San Rafael by climate hazard and also by climate solution, which I really appreciate. Corey, especially making sure we're holding the lens that, as you mentioned, climate solutions, EV solutions aren't equitable in who they benefit. And so how are we making sure we think about that? And each of our departments are thinking about that as well. So it includes a bunch of resources for staff, and then kind of a set of questions with a whole bunch of menu of options, similar, I'm sure, to Resilient Neighborhoods, but for city staff. And it's kind of when you're developing a program, how might you ... When you're developing infrastructure or having infrastructure decisions, how might you ... And when you're developing a policy, so kind of trying to put ourselves in the seat of the typical actions of city staff and say, what are the climate actions that are relevant to city staff, relevant to that particular action being taken. So we're really excited for this mock-up and to kind of take it on the road around the city and get feedback. Really, really important in terms of like change management, to not just say, hey, we did a thing and now here it is, go. But say, hey, here's a draft of a thing. We really want to co-create and refine it with you. How does this work with your workflow process? Where might this fit? For example, the Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan has a set of criteria that help guide where our resource is directed and what are the criteria we're basing the resource allocation on. And so that's an existing process that gets put in place for every single decision being made in that plan. So we're kind of, we want to look at that with staff and be like, how are these criteria reflecting our climate reality and through an equity lens, for example. So very excited for year 2 to kind of start running this mock-up by staff and getting those resources to be really what staff need to be able to move this forward, especially in like constrained, a world of constrained resources. How do we really embed this into what's already happening? So that's like a major kind of pillar of my work. And then as all you know, equitable climate action really starts with engagement and like, how are we engaging communities most impacted by climate action? And so the other big part of my position is looking at how are we doing equitable engagement across the board. And so we've made some resources for Are we embedding equity into our engagement processes? How are we ensuring we're doing this in a coordinated and consistent way? So our left hand is talking to our right hand, which is hard enough at the city, and then think about all of the partners doing engagement too at the same time with the same community members. So looking at how might we be able to expand that coordination, those mechanisms of coordination out. And that's really the focus of this year too, is like how we've built out the resources. Now, how do we build out implementing and using those resources, coordinating engagement, and a huge part of community engagement that I really appreciate that the city of San Rafael is invested in is closing the loop after engagement. And it can really be disheartening, as I'm sure you all know, if you come to give your input on something and then you never hear back what happened to that input. So the city is really committed to like closing that feedback loop and saying, hey, this is what happened based on your feedback. And so we're going to be hopefully February, March, be releasing a report that's specific to the canal area in particular in terms of closing the loop on over 10 years worth of projects, programs, and plans that basically consolidated 20 different projects, programs, and plans and got a status report on every single one across 8 different agencies and every department in the city, and giving kind of a snapshot report out of like, here's where we're at, here's what the status is, this is what's happened, this is what's ongoing, this is what's coming up next. And for things that haven't started, this is why, because that's reality too. And so closing that loop and then looking at how do we close that loop in a more continuous fashion moving forward and building the resources and systems for that. So that's what we've been working on and what we're looking at moving forward. And I just continue to be so grateful that we get to do this for the city, and grateful to the Marin Community Foundation as well, because they've funded this work. It's a 2-year role and it's funded by the Marin Community Foundation.
Thank you, Carrie. Before I go into other city updates, any questions for Carrie? Chris?
Great work at the city level, and I just have some suggestions on expanding beyond city scope. Many of you here have worked on certification programs. And I suggest to you that may be sort of a way that we propagate some of these practices. So for example, the chambers often are running certification programs through their channels. I know the city, for example, have you run into Sarah Thatcher at the county?
By name.
So Sarah is responsible for the California Green Business Certification for the county. And, you know, we've got 500-600 businesses now that have been certified. Why not build in a bias and sort of anti, what would you call this? Sort of a.
Fossil fuels,
Pardon?
fossil fuels.
No, I'm just talking about these practices of inclusion could be built in as a part of the certification program. I mean, we ask 30, 40 questions and Sarah and others go out and meet with businesses. When we pass that, we get this great sticker, we get publicized. It's a pretty cool thing. And I would see this possibly as a way, again, to propagate this practice and far beyond, what we're doing maybe at a city level. So I just throw that out. Her name's Sarah Thatcher. She's working mostly on county scope.
Awesome. Thank you. I wrote that all down and I really appreciate
Sure.
the suggestion.
I'll connect you. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll jump in really quickly to our last item here, which is just a little update on some other city projects, part of the Climate Action Plan. Let me do this so the Zoom folks can see too. I'm nice and slow with this laptop, with this keyboard. Here we go. Okay, great. So
we'll get back to you.
this is not everything, but this is
Or maybe she should.
just some updates on a few of the projects that are happening. So and come on, there we go. So the first one is our electric vehicle charging project at the Public Works Corporation yard. So one of the things about Public Works, people think about public safety as fire and police, but Public Works is public safety as well. If you think about those floods that happened recently, the majority of the folks that were out there fixing things emergency. So we need to, if we're going to have electric vehicles for Public Works or public safety, we need to get them back up and running fast. So we need some fast chargers. That's a very expensive project. It's a big project, but we're going to be putting them at the corporation yard here where the emergency vehicles are. It'll also be available. It's all available for all city staff and our vehicles in all of our fleets. Our fleet is mostly here, Public Works and the Public Safety Center. So we have two, for instance, detective cars that are the Mustang EVs, and for them to be able to get up fast charging, they can come out here. So our project is moving quickly. As Annika said, a lot of those incentives are going away. The investment tax credit, which is the first time ever that local governments could take advantage of a tax break. We don't pay taxes, but get a reimbursement through the tax system, is going to expire the end of June. So we're on fast track to try to get these in. This is a many hundreds of thousands of dollars project. Really expensive. And so we need to get every incentive we can to make this work and pencil out. But we're in process. We've got the commitment from PG&E. We've got 100% designs now. So we're about to go out to bid and get some folks on this project. So I'm really excited about this. And then we'll have 8 chem-powered chargers. And they're a little different kind of a charging system, which is that they have one stationary box, which provides all the energy, and then they distribute them under the ground to the chargers. So you can put them in multiple places and not have to have those big bulky things taking up space in the parking. So we'll be able to put that in an area that's located not right next to the chargers and then trench them to the chargers. And then these chargers are very nice because they go all the way from level 2 through a high power level 3, and you can adjust them based on who needs the charge and who needs the fast charge. So you can have vehicles charging at a level 2 and then ramp up 2 of the charges to a level 3 to be able to get folks back on the road quickly. Nice. And you can do that in real time as well. So very excited about that. The next piece is our sea level rise feasibility study. So we're at the completion of that. It's just about done. And on January 26th, we're going to have the consultants do 2 presentations, one in English and one in Spanish. And they'll both be translated. And they'll give basically the final report on the feasibility study. And so we invite you to join. That QR code will let you know, where you can just go on the city website on the events page and find it. And you can join by a Zoom, or you can come in person for the evening one at the County Health and Wellness Campus. and hear the consultants. And then Kate, our amazing climate adaptation resilience planner, is working on the final report right now and do the web updates and everything. So it's all online for people to view. And then we'll start a series of discussions, as well as we're going to try to really get our own house in order. We have a lot of things in the general plan that are policies and ordinances that need to get in place. Right now, people are building without really thinking about sea level rise and getting projects approved without building to future flood potential. And if anything, a week and a half ago showed us is the future flood potential is now. And these 100-year storms can happen any year. It doesn't matter. You don't have to wait 100 years. It can happen. Like it was a 50-year storm that happened, or 50-year high tide and flood event that happened just a week and a half ago. So we invite you to join on that. And then speaking of equity, as you know, one of my favorite projects was our equitable low carbon economy plan. And we have our green career autopilot, auto careers pilot that we got funded for. And we're in partnership with Good Green Work, Lime Foundation, Canal Alliance, and the West Oakland Jobs Resource Center to do some pilots to really test out the waters for what's a real green job here that really has some potential for the future, where people can ladder up and get into better paying work with good quality jobs and good benefits. And what we found through all of our investigation here was that one of the real areas for that work is in this idea of things are moving toward more electric vehicles, electric chargers, and the whole integration of home electrification and vehicles. And so we're going to do a pilot launching in April. It's a research and design pilot. The cohort is the kind of aha moment was canal residents and car dealerships and repair shops. All sort of right there. You can walk to work, right? Why use an EV when you can walk to work? And so that's the idea, is see how that works. If that proves successful, then it's a good opportunity to leverage for more funding for a more permanent program going on, or at least something that has a cadence of every year or so. So I'm very excited about that, and that's moving forward nicely. And then the next one, oops. I guess I didn't format that so that it has the dark background. We have a Marin Commutes program that we're working on, and it's through February 8th, I believe. And the whole idea is to get people out of their cars more, to use a commute program where they have incentives. It's a very fun program. It's an easy tracking program. We use it here at the city. Only the city and the county are using it right now. Not many other employers are using it, but any employer can use it. The chamber's actually had some interest in seeing if they could offer it somehow to all their smaller employers and businesses in Marin. So we'll see if we can make that happen. But anyway, that's happening right now. And if you just go to marincommutes.org, you can find out more about that. And then I just wanted to have, as always, spaced for you to have any general questions, anything that wasn't brought up tonight, or any input for future meetings. And then we can tell you about our exciting April meeting as well. Anything else?
Once again, great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being here. So April is Climate Week and SF Climate Week. And we always try to do something special for SF Climate Week. Did you have something, Annika?
I had questions for you, but that's okay. I can.
Okay, I'll do this and then we can ask.
Yeah.
All right. So tentatively, April 21st right now. So that's in the middle of Climate Week. It's the day before Earth Day. And the idea is to have an open house, and then our climate action forum as well, really focused on, again, the sea level rise piece and students and youth presentations about youth climate action that's happening as well. And so Miles is very involved and is engaging his youth. And then we've talked to Marin Cell. And so the whole idea is to try to have a lot of youth engagement and have youth sort of demonstrating with boards and presentations and things about what their thoughts for climate action are, as well as their thoughts for, in this really challenging conundrum that's $1 billion problem here in San Rafael related to sea level rise, what are some innovative and exciting opportunities that we might have?
And that's going to be here, or where are you going to stage it?
TBD, where it'll be. You know, last year we did the
Biomarin, right?
Biomarin. So we need a big place that has places where we can have displays and host as an open house, and then also have the presentations in the meeting. Maybe Canal. It's a good idea. So mark your calendars. It's a tentative date, but April 21st is what we Annika.
I was gonna ask you, where can we get more information about your Green Auto Careers pilot?
So we don't have a lot online, but the California First, which is the funding source, has a small description on it as well. And then, of course, I can send you materials too.
Yeah,
so.
that would be awesome. And then can we do a field trip up to the to check out the new EV charging that you have for the city fleets and planet, you know?
Oh, at Public Works?
Yeah,
When it's done? That's a great idea. I love
Yeah,
that idea.
we
Okay.
love that.
Good idea.
Yeah, maybe we could even do an event there for staff.
Oh, good idea.
Can I just clarify, is that station? There's a program that's called California Jobs First.
Yes, that's it.
Is that okay?
Okay, that's it. Exactly. California Jobs First.
That's 421 thing would be like an evening thing, similar time.
Exactly. We're thinking maybe open house starting at 4 and then start the forum by 5:30, somewhere in there. And then have it be, because people like to hang out and chat afterwards, have that and the boards will still be out.
And there was
There's a question about the
So he contacted.
sea level rise study and all that.
So she would draw it up, but they say.
Been following it, are there
It didn't work out.
other cities and counties doing their own sea level rise studies? Is the county doing one, or have they've done different ones, different from yours perhaps, but how is that integrated and, or is it not?
Yes. So it is loosely integrated right now. And the county put on hold, they had a consultant team, AECOM, and some others working on a project to understand how the county can sort sea level rise countywide, whether that's filling in a gap for all the cities and towns and special districts, or whether that's actually convening and coordinating a group, all of us together on sea level rise planning. Our project is a study. It's a feasibility study for potential interventions that can help us protect more from sea level rise and flooding in the future. This county did a vulnerability assessment in 2017, which was really about what's at risk, what kinds of potential impacts are going to be and what's that going to cost. So that it wasn't looking at solutions, it was more looking at the impacts. And so that still is sort of a guiding document for all of us in terms of the vulnerabilities. But this feasibility study also uncovered a lot more vulnerabilities because it wasn't very localized. So we went from the 10,000 foot level to the 5,000 foot level. But there's still a lot of work to be done to understand what you can really do locally. For instance, so much of our barrier around San Rafael is private property, like 100 private properties. So that's not owned by the city. The levee is not owned by the city. So there's a lot of, it's going to be an all-in effort, public-private philanthropic partnership to really get at long-term solutions, and they're going to be super expensive.
Yeah. And in addition to the staff meetings, I also meet with Mayor Kate. We are part of the Sea Level Rise for the county. We meet regularly, and there are like 2 representatives from Marin County as well for BCTC for the Bay Area. So there are a lot of initiatives, and I know that for I'm part of the climate change committee for Cal Cities for the state, and they are looking right now at what different topics to address. The challenge there is that there are like a lot of parts of the state that they don't have bay and they don't have flooding. It's more like the wildfires. So how do we start talking about the funding? Because the funding is going to be the biggest issue. How can we get? It's going to cost a lot of money. How can we get all of us funding to start working on the solutions? So,
Yeah, thank you.
And most of the funding you're looking for is at the federal level.
It has to be. It's
too big otherwise.
100 times what our annual general fund budget is. It's not something you can raise through financing.
Yeah.
Although financing is going to be a piece of it. Annika.
I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of, when you're doing outreach for the event on the 26th, to really like focus in on what just happened, because oftentimes like when we have unfortunate like extreme weather events like fires and flooding, it's like a time when people are focused and paying attention. So like connecting the dots, maybe we'll get more attendance and more engagement.
I'll tell you right now, we have 100 people signed up on Zoom.
Wow, nice.
So yes.
Yes.
For April?
For January 26th. Jesse, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that online if you're there? Not that you have to, don't feel like you're put on the spot, but if there's anything you wanted to add or.
Only that I'm already planning to join. Really excited
Okay, great,
to
great.
listen in.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Yep.
I just wanted to thank you for bringing together the three presenters or organizations presenting tonight. Really useful to see the good work of the nonprofit side of the climate movement. And I was thinking between waste, sorry, Chad, but waste. And EVs or mobility, transportation and households, that really captures, the three areas that are going to get us to zero net carbon. And it's really great to hear that all coming together. And I also was gratified that all three of them are key climate solutions of Marin Can.
Really, that's right.
Identified, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for coming and for being part of it. And as always, you can reach out to me if you have any suggestions or ideas for future meetings or anything, please do reach out.
I have a singer lined up for you for opening. Yeah, one of the meetings. I have a singer lined up.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good to know. We're hoping to have youth poetry at the next one too.
Okay.
Good night, all. Thank you.
I want to take a picture of the book you read.
So yesterday I had a meeting for the